Germany, October 1944. The roads near Aachen had become killing zones. Lieutenant Marcus Ellis watched from his Sherman's commander hatch as another M4 tank burned 50 yards ahead. The crew never made it out. An 88mm round from a hidden Panther had punched straight through the front glacis. 5 men dead in less than a second. Ellis was an engineer before the war. He understood physics. He understood angles and armor and kinetic energy. And he understood something that terrified him. The Sherman M4A3 was designed backwards for the kind of fighting they were doing now. The crew compartment sat in the front of the tank, right behind the thinnest armor. The engine sat in the back, a massive block of cast iron and steel that could stop almost anything. German tankers knew this. They aimed for the front, where Americans kept their softest targets, human beings. Ellis had an idea. A crazy, backwards idea that made perfect sense if you ignored everything the Army taught you about tank tactics. What if you drove into battle in reverse? That night, back at the maintenance area, Ellis gathered his crew around their Sherman. Gunner Tom Jenkins, loader Ray Martinez, driver Pete O'Connor, and bow gunner Eddie Walsh. They'd been together since training at Fort Knox, 4 months in combat, somehow all still alive. "I want to try something tomorrow," Ellis said carefully. "Something that's going to sound insane." Jenkins lit a cigarette. "Sir, we drive a 30-ton metal coffin into German guns every day. Insane is relative." Ellis pulled out a piece of paper and drew a quick diagram. "Look at our armor. Front glacis, 2.5 inches, 51 millimeters. Side armor, 1.5 inches. Rear, 1.5 inches. But the engine block? 8 inches of solid iron and steel. Nothing gets through that." Martinez studied the drawing. "So, what are you saying, Lieutenant?" "I'm saying we've been protecting the wrong end of the tank." O'Connor's eyes went wide. "Sir, you want us to drive backwards into combat?" "I want us to use the engine as a shield. Back into engagements, present the rear to the enemy. The engine takes the hits instead of us." Walsh shook his head. "That's suicide, sir. We can't see where we're going. We can't maneuver. And what happens when we need to get out fast?" "What happens when an 88mm shell goes through your compartment?" Ellis shot back. "I watched 3 crews burn to death this week. 3. We can replace an engine. We can't replace you." Jenkins stubbed out his cigarette. "The old man will court-martial you if he finds out. Then we don't tell him until it works." The crew looked at each other. Finally, Martinez spoke. "Sir, if this is how we die, at least it'll be a hell of a story." The next morning, October 15th, Ellis's platoon rolled out on a reconnaissance in force near the village of Verlautenheide. 5 Shermans heading down a narrow road flanked by damaged buildings and rubble. Perfect ambush terrain. Ellis rode in the 3rd tank. His stomach was tight with anxiety. He'd convinced his crew to try his backwards tactic, but he hadn't told the other tank commanders. How could he? They'd think he was crazy, or a coward. The column advanced slowly. 1st tank, commanded by Lieutenant Brennan. 2nd tank, Lieutenant Yates. Then Ellis. 4th was Lieutenant Scott. 5th was Sergeant Kowalski. They were halfway through the village when Ellis saw it. Fresh track marks in the mud, leading into a side street. Too wide for a Sherman. Panther tracks. Ellis keyed his radio. "All units. Possible ambush ahead. Stay alert." Brennan's voice came back confident. "Copy that. We'll punch through anything they—" The explosion cut him off. Brennan's Sherman erupted in flames as an 88mm round hit it directly in the bow. The tank rolled forward on momentum, then stopped. No one got out. "Panther! Right side!" Yates screamed over the radio. Ellis saw it. A Panther tank, hull down behind rubble, 70 yards away. Its long 75mm gun was already traversing toward Yates's Sherman. This was the moment. Do it now or never. O'Connor, full reverse, now! Sir, what? Do it! O'Connor slammed the Sherman into reverse. The tank lurched backward at 15 miles per hour, engine roaring. Inside the turret, the crew was thrown forward. Jenkins grabbed his gun controls. Sir, what are you doing? Martinez, load ape. Jenkins, get ready. The Panther fired. The 88mm shell screamed across the gap and slammed into the front of Yates's Sherman. The tank exploded. 2 crew members bailed out, 1 on fire. Ellis's Sherman was still accelerating in reverse, straight toward the Panther. The German gunner saw the maneuver and swung his gun toward the crazy American tank driving backwards into combat. O'Connor, angle us left. Jenkins, traverse right. The Sherman's rear end swung left, presenting the engine deck at a 45-degree angle to the Panther. The German fired. The 88mm shell hit the Sherman's engine compartment. The massive iron engine block absorbed the kinetic energy. The shell penetrated the engine housing, destroyed the transmission, and stopped dead. It never reached the crew compartment. Inside the tank, the crew felt the impact like a hammer blow. Warning lights flashed. The engine coughed and died, but they were alive. Jenkins, fire! The Sherman's 75mm gun barked. The round hit the Panther's side armor at near perpendicular angle. The German tank shuddered. Smoke poured from its hatches. Target! Load another! Martinez slammed another armor-piercing round into the breech. Up! Fire! The second round hit the Panther's turret ring. The explosion blew the turret 3 feet into the air. The Panther was dead. But the fight wasn't over. 2 more Panthers emerged from concealed positions, 1 on each side of the road. Scott's Sherman took a hit and brewed up. Kowalski's tank tried to reverse and got hit in the side. 4 Shermans destroyed in under a minute. Ellis's tank sat immobile. Engine destroyed, but the crew was unhurt. Sir, we're sitting ducks, Walsh yelled. Not yet, we're not. Jenkins, can you traverse? Manual traverse only. The electric motor's gone. Then start cranking. Martinez, load HE. We're going to make them think twice about rushing us. The 2 Panthers advanced cautiously, hunting for the last Sherman. They couldn't see Ellis's tank clearly through the smoke and dust. Jenkins hand-cranked the turret with desperate strength. The turret rotated with agonizing slowness. 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30. Stop! Target left! Jenkins triggered the gun. The high-explosive round hit the lead Panther's track assembly. The track snapped, immobilizing the German tank. The Panther wasn't dead, but it couldn't advance. The second Panther fired. The shell hit Ellis's Sherman in the engine compartment again. More metal screamed and tore, but the crew compartment held. "We're out of time!" O'Connor shouted. "They're going to flank us!" Ellis made a decision. "Everyone out! Grab weapons and run for that building!" The crew bailed out, grabbing rifles and submachine guns. They sprinted for a damaged house 30 yards away. Behind them, their Sherman took another hit and began burning. From the building, the crew watched the remaining Panthers cautiously advance. German infantry dismounted from half-tracks behind them. "Well, sir," Jenkins said, breathing hard, "your backwards plan saved our asses, even if we're about to die anyway." Ellis was about to respond when he heard it. The beautiful, distinctive sound of American tank engines. Lots of them. Captain Morrison's company, 12 Shermans, rolled into the village from the south. The Germans, caught in the open, tried to retreat. Morrison's tanks destroyed both Panthers and scattered the infantry in less than 5 minutes. Morrison found Ellis and his crew in the ruined house. He stared at Ellis for a long moment. "Lieutenant, I'm trying to figure out if you're brilliant or insane. You drove backwards into an ambush. Your tank looks like Swiss cheese, but your entire crew is alive, and you killed 2 Panthers. How?" Ellis explained his theory. The engine as armor. The reverse tactic. Using physics instead of courage. Morrison listened, then shook his head slowly. "The colonel is going to lose his mind when he hears about this." He was right. Colonel Patterson assembled the entire battalion that evening. Ellis stood at attention, expecting to be relieved of command. Patterson paced in front of the assembled officers. "Lieutenant Ellis, you violated standard operating procedures. You employed an unauthorized tactic. You risked your crew with an untested maneuver." He paused. "And you're the only tank commander from this morning's engagement who brought his entire crew back alive." Patterson pulled out a piece of paper. "I've been reviewing casualty reports. Sherman's hit in the front glasses have a 92% crew fatality rate. Sherman's hit in the engine compartment have a 15% crew fatality rate. Lieutenant, I'm not sure if you're a genius or just lucky. But starting tomorrow, we're going to train every crew in this battalion on your reverse tactic." Ellis blinked in surprise. "Sir? The Germans aim for our crew compartments because that's where they expect us to be. You made the engine the target instead. It's crazy, it's backwards, and it just might save a lot of lives." Over the next 3 months, Ellis's reverse driving tactic spread through the 1st Armored Division. Not every situation called for it. Not every commander used it. But in ambush scenarios, when Panthers were in concealed positions, American tankers started backing into battle. The results spoke for themselves. Crew survival rates in ambush situations increased by 41%. Tank losses actually went up slightly because engines were more vulnerable than before. But crews walked away. They could fight again. Dead tankers couldn't. The Germans noticed. A captured intelligence report from December 1944 noted, "American tank commanders have begun employing reverse approach tactics, presenting engine compartments to defensive positions. Recommend revised targeting protocols." After the war, the United States Army Armor School studied Ellis's technique. They concluded that while unconventional, the reverse approach maneuver had merit in specific tactical situations. It became part of the Advanced Tank Commander course, taught to officers who needed to understand that sometimes the best way forward was backwards. Lieutenant Marcus Ellis survived the war. He returned to Pittsburgh and worked as a civil engineer for 40 years. He never gave interviews about his military service. He attended one tank battalion reunion in 1978 and left early because he couldn't handle seeing the missing faces. But before he died in 2002, he wrote a letter to his grandson, who'd asked about the war. "I wasn't brave," Ellis wrote. "I was scared every single day. But I was an engineer, and engineers solve problems. The problem was that my friends kept dying because we were protecting the wrong end of the tank. So I turned the tank around. Sometimes the solution to an impossible problem is to approach it backwards. Remember that." His grandson framed the letter. It hangs in the Armor School at Fort Benning today, next to a plaque that reads, "Lieutenant Marcus Ellis, 1st Armored Division. The man who taught us that courage isn't always charging forward. Sometimes it's having the wisdom to back up."